What are you doing here today? Actually, what are you and I doing here today? Well, I think we're going to talk about your attitude today. And you are listening to the Resilient Entrepreneur Podcast number 12. This is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting. And yes, that's right. We're going to talk about your attitude. Some of you might think, well, this is immediately going to be something not positive. And actually, we're going to talk about the factual aspect of it and not the positive versus negative aspect of things. And before I really get started with this, what I want you to do for a minute is just close your eyes. And I want you to think back to 2019. Think back to that year when you thought things were interesting. Think back to some of the things that happened and you thought, wow, things are tough or what have you. Things are different. Things are changing. And now open your eyes and look at what's going on around you right now. Open your eyes and look at the type of communication that's being rained down upon us right now. And when I say communication, I'm talking about whether it's the news, it could be social media, it could be some people that you interact with, whether that's at work, at home, wherever. And it's just that, I think, if you really step back and look at it, is going to have a tremendous amount of influence on your attitude. And your attitude is going to define what you are and are not going to be doing in the immediate future. And if you really look at what you expose yourself to, and we've all heard this stuff before, but I really have to, I really believe right now it is far more critical and crucial than it has been in the last year to 5 years for sure. But it is far more critical right now to think about what you're exposing yourself to regarding communication and whether things are influencing you in a positive way or not so positive way. And those of you who know me, I love examples. I love to look at other things because things can look hard until you look at somebody else and see they've already done it. So when you think about attitude, and sometimes those attitudes, usually they're an emotional response to something that you see as being impossible or difficult or not fun, something along those lines. And, most times just an emotional response. And I love examples of things where people have already done something. So when you think about Elon Musk, here's a guy that he just needed funding for something. He needed a wad of cash to roll into something else. And here he goes out and I think he sold like 10,000 flamethrowers just to create some cash to go do something else. Had no interest in getting in the flamethrower business, but he did this just to make money to do something else. It was a means to an end. And here now the guy is privatizing, putting people into space. Okay, that, at one point that was kind of like regarded just for NASA. And any of you who've listened to me more than once knows that I'm a huge fan of the Navy SEALs and really any special forces unit, because here's a group of individuals that when they're assigned a mission or a task, you don't go walking into this with a mindset that we could fail. You go into this mission with, we're going to achieve the mission. We're going to come back with whoever we're tasked with bringing back, whether it's our fallen soldiers or whoever. We're not going to lose. This kind of talk speaks to their mentality, their attitude walking into this. And then there's other things that, you might look at some of those and think, well, they're the elite of the elite. And if I take this down, and really, quite honestly, before I move any further, a lot of those Navy SEALs were people just like you and I. The whole BUDS process is there to weed people out. And some of these people, and if you listen to a lot of these Navy SEALs, they'll tell you the ones that show up for BUDS and the ones that may have been an extreme athlete or they're just completely ripped, or they have this ego complex kind of thing. A lot of times they're not the ones that make it through. It's the ones that have the mental fortitude in light of all the pressures that they're being put under. Those are the ones that succeed. Sometimes they have little, short guys. Sometimes they have long, lanky guys. Sometimes they have, guys that just don't look like they're much. And they're the ones that come through BUDS program and go flying through the SEALs program. So then you have others like Mike Tyson. If you really go back and look at his history, which is I'm actually kind of delving back into right now, I listened to a really good interview with he and Tony Robbins not long ago. An interesting past for Mike Tyson. He could have given up so many times in his lifetime. And here he's back. He's back in the ring at his age. Nobody thinks about competing at that level at that age. But here Mike Tyson's doing it. And if you go back and watch old videos of him when he was back in his youth and prime, not during his hiatus, but back in his youth and prime, you could see in his eyes when he walked in that ring, he already won. There was no losing. And then, I also think about everyday people just like you, me. I ran into a realtor, I think back in January. And she was explaining to me how she had something really difficult that she was trying to achieve. I think she was having a little bit of a difficult time launching her business to the point where she wanted it to be. And, we ended up talking for another 5-10 minutes and come to find out she's got 2 autistic children and she's running a real estate business. And when we really sit back and think about, what we consider to be tough or what we consider to be an inconvenience or what we consider... And here, she's done a phenomenal job raising 2 autistic children who take a great deal of her time, and she's done a phenomenal job as a mother providing for 2 autistic children, and she's running a real estate business. Okay? When I think about the magnitude of what she's been able to accomplish with these 2 children, as opposed to running a real estate business, I think the autistic children probably rank a whole lot higher on the scale of difficulty, commitment, and consistency as opposed to running her real estate business. So I think when we put those things in perspective, she's already climbed Mount Everest. And I know, if we bring this back to you, I know that there's things that you encounter on a day-to-day basis that make you sit back and say, this is impossible. Or in some way, shape, or form, the language that comes out of your mouth is saying, I give up, or I'm done, or I'm not putting it, even if you just say I'm in some way, shape, or form, I'm not putting the same level of effort into this, you're going to lose. I mean, if you're Mike Tyson walking into a ring and you walk in saying, I'm not going to put the same level of effort into this, you've just lost the fight. And you're not in the business of fighting, but you are in the business of providing a service or a product to someone else. If you're listening to this and you are the owner, the provider, the home builder, the real estate agent, you're an administrative employee, a clinical employee, it doesn't matter who you are within this business, all of you have the same opportunity when we're listening to this. All of this applies no matter where you are within the business, because attitude literally is going to define everything for you. Everything is what you make it. So if you came from a background where everything wasn't given to you, you know what? In many respects, I feel like if you've got something now, you earned it. You've been through the school of hard knocks. You've learned so much by achieving through something that you didn't have something to start with. So oftentimes there's things that may appear to be a hurdle in front of you. It's just one more thing I'm putting in my toolbox. That attitude that you go into this with, one way, shape, or form, I'm going to win. You may not get the client, but you learn something from this one, and the next 10 I will get because I learned something from that one. You will not learn anything until you put yourself out there. So what do we do with all this? It's easy to say, but it does start with a daily effort to, number one, change the mindset. And you will, one way, shape, or form, you have to carve out time to do that. And whether that's you just put something on the mirror, so when you're shaving, brushing your teeth, putting your makeup on, something in the morning, you look at something in the morning that reminds you that I'm doing something to change my mindset. Some people read devotionals. Some people listen to someone. Some people will exercise, do yoga, something of the sort, something to clear their mind and put them on the path of a different mindset. The second thing that has to happen, and you will need to police yourself, and you may even need to ask others to help you police yourself, and that is you have to change the language that comes out of your mouth. And I'm going to say that twice. You have to change the language that comes out of your mouth, because at that point, that's the point at which you're really starting to turn a corner. Instead of saying this sucks, instead of saying that and making excuses about why a client or a customer didn't do something, if you look at that and the language that starts coming out of your mouth starts to sound like more like an opportunity instead of a problem, that's when you've turned a corner. So I'll even challenge you with one more thing. Try to be the positive one. In fact, don't even try. Just be the positive one in your circle. Be the one that actually is the one lifting others up. If you've ever heard the little scenario or the saying, and I could be a little bit off on this, but if once you teach something, you know it 8 times better than what you did before. So if you're the positive one, imagine where you have to be the one lifting others up. Imagine you having that level of positivity, that level of optimism by being the one that lifts the others up around you. And I guarantee you, if you take that challenge, I guarantee you're going to see a more positive result for yourself, because I'm going back to what I said, everything is what you make it. So that, my friends, was the Resilient Entrepreneur Podcast number 12. I'm guessing that hit home for a number of you, either for yourself or for some that might be around you. And if you like that one, I would highly recommend you listen to the next one, because I have a feeling it's going to be just as impactful.